Yes, Mahendra, you may start the session.
Yeah, sure. So, hello everyone, and welcome to day two session on AZ900 Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. So, let me quickly share my screen and start with today's agenda. So, today, before going to the next topics, I would like to show you what are the skills the certification would measure. This is a standard document released by Microsoft. Yeah, so I think we can start, right? So around 4:03, and people are still joining it. Is my voice audible?
Yes, audible, audible.
Yeah. Okay. Please do let me know if there is some any voice issues or sound issues from my end. I'll just take care. Okay. So now going to today's topic, let's say this is the standard document shared by Microsoft while measuring your skills in AZ 900 examination and certification. So yesterday we have discussed these things, described the cloud concepts, and 15 to 20% of the first section. So let's say yesterday we have gone through what are the terms and the terminologies and their explanations, like what is a high availability, what is a scalability, what is an agility, what is capex, opex, and let's say what's the difference between the different services offered in cloud. Let's say IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. And what are the different clouds we have? So till here we have discussed yesterday. So before going to the next topics, today would be like not like yesterday's one. So we'll be having a live session as well. We'll be having the live hands-on rather than going with the PPT. I will be showing you these things on Azure portal and verifying over there. We'll be simultaneously working with the theoretical part as well. So not let's I think we could start for today. Give me a second. I'm sharing you my screen. Yes. So people can see my screen right now as of now. Okay. So yesterday we have discussed about one virtual machine, and we just ignored what are the things which what are the first thing you need to learn when coming to cloud. So the first thing when you are connecting to a cloud, or the first thing you need to know in Microsoft Cloud is called the subscription. This is the first one we say whenever you are dealing with cloud. So if you go to subscription, give me a second, it is asking me to sign in. I'll just sign in and I'll come. I'll again share my screen. Yes. Okay, so the first one would be your subscription. Whenever you are starting learning with your Azure Cloud as an on hands-on, or else when you want to see what is the tool or who am I, you need to know which subscriptions are assigned to your organization, or else which subscriptions are assigned on your name. Let's say you are an individual, you took an Azure account, then you will be having a single subscription like this, a free trial. Or else if you are running with an organization, then you will be having multiple subscription accounts over here basing on the environments you are running. Let's say I want to keep all the resources which are running in India location in one subscription. I can keep resources running in some other location in other subscription, so that I can differentiate. Let's say if I have multiple teams, let's say mine is a manufacturing company. So in my manufacturing company I have multiple teams, like I have a sales team, I have a HR team, I have a vendor team, I have a developer team. So there are multiple teams. Let's say in any organization, we only don't have developers, we have multiple teams over it. So basing on the different teams, we'll be taking different subscriptions just to make sure every subscription, how much is the utilization is happening and how much is the billing per every individual team, just to make sure what is the billing, what is the resources which are consumed, and how many users are using it. So unit for making sure on these all things, we'll be using a subscription, and subscription will be our topmost, the first level in Azure. So after subscription, you will be having the next important thing is called as your resource groups. So this is a resource group. So what is a resource group and why are we using resource groups over here? So a resource group is like, what we say is like, these are different resource groups we have. Sorry, yeah, these are the different resource groups I have in my Azure account. So a resource group is like, it is a combination of multiple resources. It's like you have different resources. I have one application running in this region. I have, sorry, you were saying something? Is my voice not audible?
Yeah, it's audible.
Okay, I think it's like in the chat, some people are saying like it's breaking or it is not audible. So I'm just reconfirming it. Anyways, thank you. Okay, so coming back to the resource groups, what I say is like a resource group is nothing like it is a container for all your resources. In Azure, you will be using multiple resources. Multiple resources in the sense, I just as a simple examples I can tell you. Let's say if I just quickly open one resource group. So see, I have these many resources running on my in this resource group. What are these resources? So this is a public IP address which I have. This is a DNS service which I have deployed, and let's say this is a virtual machine I have, and this is a network security group. So I will be explaining each and everything one by one. So don't get worried. So you have multiple set of resources like this. I have disks. Let's say if you want your, let's say people are interested in IoT. So IoT. So for IoT also, you can create one IoT and you can add that IoT to your existing resource group. See, it is asking for your resource group. Okay. I will give this as my resource group and I can add my IoT hub to my existing resource group. So what is IoT Hub? I'll be explaining all the services in one by one. Let's go ahead. Let's go in a manner. So coming back, so resource group is like it is a combination of all the services or all the resources you are using in Azure will be accommodated at one area, just to make sure. Let's say all your virtual machines stay in one resource group, all your what we say your virtual networks stay in one resource group, all your web apps in the sense your IoT, your data warehousing related apps, or else your infrastructure related apps like your public IP address, your DNS. So there are different kind of things. So we'll be discussing for everything one by one. So if just to accommodate all those in one block or one area, we'll be using a resource group just to filter the things. Let's say I can create one resource group for India region and I can create another resource group for US region. I can create another resource group in some other region. It's not just based on location. It is just to ensure that we have kept everything at one area and that is working as expected. And another point here, the resource group, it will Microsoft is not charging for resource group. It's your wish. You can create how many resource groups you want, just to segregate the things. But when you are using these resources inside the resource group, then definitely there will be a charge as we yesterday discussed. So those charges as well, I will be showing you how much the charge would be in the pricing and support section. Then it will be helpful for you over there. So now coming to different kind of resources, what are, let's say I've spoke about multiple resources. I spoke about a disk, I spoke about a DNS, I spoke about network interface, network security group, public IP address. So I spoke multiple things. So what are these resources and how can we differentiate these resources? Simple to say. Why are we using these resources and what are these deployments over here? What is the subscription? I already said, and this is your subscription ID. And let's say, how can I manage these all resources? What are the tools we have to manage these resources? and what are the different properties which we can see on this on the left hand side pane of your resource group. So we'll be discussing everything one by one, so please bear with me for today. I believe today would be a complete portal based session. It's not like a PPT one. In the between we'll be going here and there, so it will be a mixed one. So coming to let's go back to our what we say. Okay, so first directly going to the resource, let's create one resource group and I'll show you. So if you come, you can just go, this is your home screen. When you are in your home screen, you can just drag down, you will get your resource groups, or else you can just give a search over here for your resource groups and you will get it. So you have created, you have just searched for a resource group, you clicked on add, and here you are creating a resource group. So subscription, as I said, if you are an enterprise, if you are working for a company, and if your Azure account is a company-based account, you'll be having multiple subscriptions. Based on the team, you'll be selecting the relevant subscription. And resource group, I want to create one new resource group. Okay, so I just created one resource group. And what is the region I want to host it? I can host it at India location. Give me a second. Okay, so next I've selected one location as South India. So after selecting this thing, we'll be going to the tags. What is a tag? Tag is like just to ensure where and why you are using this resource group. Let's say this is my production environment. So I'll keep it in production and I'll keep the value as India location. I will show you how the tags work. So it will help you a lot when you are working for billing. At the time of billing of your products, it will help you. And it's coming to review and create. So if you are at this section and you can just click on create and your resource group is created. So once going to your resource group, you have multiple sections over here. And deployments are no deployments because we didn't deploy anything. So there is no deployments. So what is a deployment and how do we deploy? So let's try to create one virtual machine so that we can get end-to-end information on it. Okay, let's go to the resource group. Wait, I'm sorry. Let's go to a virtual machine. Okay, now I'm creating one using the latest resource group which we have created. Okay, the subscription is this. And whenever you are creating a new resource, it will automatically create a new resource group. If you don't want it, you can just select your existing one. This is my existing, I've selected it. So my virtual machine name, I've kept it. Location you can ignore, it is as per your interest, whatever location. And next, so coming to your availability options, this is the main and important one when you are dealing in Azure. What is availability options, what is availability zone, and what is availability set? So availability set is like you have we say you have multiple VMs. So you are creating one machine where you will be deploying it at a location where you have another multiple virtual machines sharing the same data. So let's say whatever we have created at one zone will be replicated over there. So if we have any issue on one of the virtual machine, then automatically the second one will come up and it will help you to maintain your high availability 100%. So that one you can say is like your availability set, and your availability zone is the zone where all your environment is available. So let's say in South India is not available. The availability set and availability zones are not available in South India. That is the reason we didn't got anything. So let's say we'll select US, East US. So I can get my availability zone. Okay. So availability zone, how many I want used as an availability zone? 3. So I want to create it as 3 so that there will be 3 machines. I think just give me a second. So there will be 3 machines in contact with my existing one. So mine is 1, and there will be a 3-layer type where the information is shared between all those all the machines. And let's say if one machine gets down, the other one will come in picture, and your high availability concept will work, and automatically the data will be transferred on it, and the system will be completely available. And your image. So yesterday we've discussed this one. Let's take some image. Okay. And next, coming to size. Size also we have discussed yesterday. What is the size you are planning to take? Let's say I will take this one, and this is your username. You can give it whatever you want. And next, main important would be your inbound port rules. In public inbound ports, select inbound ports and how it is connecting either via an RDP or else you want to use an existing Windows. You can ignore this one. This is for license, so this is fine. So the main important is your inbound port rules. So if you are not allowing this 3389 port to connect to your virtual machine, then we cannot connect to it and we cannot log into the system. So it will not allow us to log in. So see, I'll as of now I will show you one machine where it is which is already ready. So and I will disable this port and I will show you how it will show the error. So just give me a second.
Um,
Okay, I have stopped my virtual machine. See, this is the status when you have stopped your resources, whatever it is. It's if it's
मेरे
virtual machine, then you will get the status as stopped. So
मेरे
let's start it. So once it is starting, I will try to remove this port, which one I just shown you, 3389. So already we have that port which is allowed in this area. So
मेरा phone just
the inbound ports. Just give me a second. I think Prudvigar, we can hear you.
ये गाले
Yeah. Okay, so now here these are the inbound ports which are available for this. So let's say I want to add one port. See, this is the port which is active 3389. So let's say if I disable this 3389 port. So before I disable it, I'll first log in and show you how it works. If it is working fine, then it is okay. Let's say it is not working, then I will show you. See, it is connecting on the port 3389 to our virtual machine. And this we call the centralindia.cloudapp.azure.com. We call it as our FQDN. So whenever you are running in Azure, we'll be having this FQDN. FQDN is like fully qualified domain name. We'll be having it, whatever the location you have created, basing on your DNS, this will be created and it needs to be configured properly. Okay. Screen is stopping. 1 second. So I think you can see the remote desktop, right? So now I'm connecting to the remote desktop via 3389 port. So see, it is connected. I am in the new remote desktop, which is already working on my machine. So now what we'll be doing is like, we'll be disabling that 3389 port and we'll try to connect to the same. So how we will disable and what is the point of disabling it? So it is your port for your remote desktop connectivity. So this is your 3389 port. And if you select this as deny, the allow action is deny. And if you save it, so it takes it's like a very little less time. It is fine. Yeah, it is done. So now if you try to connect to your virtual machine via 3389 port, it will not allow you to do. Just give me a second. It's taking some time on my machine. So let's try to deny this port, and I'm removing this port as of now from here. As of now, I'm taking 3389 from this and I'll keep it as 3390 and I'll allow it. So what are the rules we are updating over here? We call it as the inbound network rules. So all these network rules play a crucial role whenever you are trying to configure your environment. I think my screen is not visible. Sure. See, now I'm getting this network error. Again, I'll download my RDP file and I'll open it. Again, I'll try to connect. See, it is pointing to 3389, but we didn't allowed 3389 in our machine. We have allowed 3390, and the port number over here is, so that is the reason it is not allowing it. So you need to make sure all these ports and the respective things are working. So at the time of security concepts, we can discuss these points much more clear. So let's go to our PPT and I will explain you the things. Then we'll again come back to this platform and we'll show it. So coming to the next, it is we can take our accounts and we can run our application as expected. But there are some restricted regions where only government has access over there. And yesterday we have shown this picture as well. So where all Azure data centers and Azure new connectivity layers are available. So this is a picture which you can see. And availability zones, which we just discussed. I'll show you one diagram. It will be easy for you. Yes. So this is the availability zone. So your whatever virtual machine you have created, it will be available in 3 different zones. Let's say you have created in your availability zone 1. So whatever the changes which are happening over here, or else whatever the changes or whatever connections which we are happening over here, it will be replicated to the other areas as well. Because let's say if we have some power outage, let's say if we have some network outage, power outage, or some natural disasters, natural calamities are getting happened at one location, then the business should not stop. So that is the reason we will be using this availability sets, and it will be automatically available whenever this first zone is down. The second zone and the third zone will come up and your application will be available without any issues. So this is your availability zones. So coming to resource groups, which we just shown you. So this is the hierarchy which we say. The first one is your subscriptions. After subscriptions, you comes to your resource groups. After resource groups comes your resources. So it will be an easy diagram for you whenever you see this one. So it's like it is in this hierarchy. So basing on your what we say companies policies and basing on your individual policies, you will be getting access to these areas, and everything is based on RBAC. RBAC means role-based access control. So I can give you access only to run this virtual machine, and you will be not access to run any of these resources. Or else I can give you access to the main Azure subscription. So that you can modify everything over under it. Or else I can give you access to only this subscription so that you can modify this resource group and this resources. So it is like it's a complete role-based access control, and everything which we are running in Azure is completely secured, and authentication is much more what we say, it's concentrated much more when compared to other areas. So next comes your Azure Resource Manager. So what is this Azure Resource Manager and what it does means? We call it as ARM templates. So ARM templates, what it plays in a real-time situation is like, so whenever you are deploying some service, so you are installing something, so at that point of time, what happens is like there will be a background coding or background information which is getting generated at the backend. So that is called as an ARM template. So you can use your ARM, you can use an existing ARM template, you can modify it, and you can redeploy it immediately without using this time which you have invested for the first one. let's say yesterday we have created one virtual machine and it took around 5 minutes or 10 minutes for us to deploy it. So now what we can do is like for every deployment, we get an ARM template. So yesterday's ARM, we can take yesterday's ARM template and we can modify the values in it, and we can redeploy the template within 5 minutes, less than the time which is consumed yesterday. So let me show you how an ARM template looks like. So coming to subscriptions, sorry, where is the resource group? Resource group. Okay. So these are the deployments which are happened in our zone. So where is study one? Okay. So we have viewed this one yesterday, Microsoft Desktop Windows. So yesterday we have deployed this. So if you go to this template, so here this is called your ARM template. So whatever you are giving, whatever the changes or the values you are giving over here, you can modify it. Just give me a second. Yes, this is the one. This is your template. So you can use these values, you can modify your values, you can change it immediately, and you can just download it, or else you can deploy it again. So within, let's say yesterday, if it took 10 minutes, within 5 minutes, you can complete this one with the latest ARM template, which you have downloaded, which you have modified. So let's say yesterday I have kept my public IP address as new VM-IP. So now I want to create a same environment, but I want to create my public IP address as new VM2-IP. You can modify these all values. You can just download it. You can modify these values and you can redeploy it at a very fast way. So if you just come down, it will show you what all are available. See, what is the virtual machine size we used yesterday? Yesterday we used the standard B1MS virtual machine size. Let's say I think it will be giving you a 2 GB RAM and some hardware. So you can modify it. If you know the standard virtual machine size, you can update with your respective value over here. And let's say what is your username and what is your password over here, and what is the type of replication mechanism you are using. So standard LRS, it is a SKU which we are using. So before going to the next concepts, I would like to tell you what is a SKU. SKU means, let's say, let's take a real-time example. So real-time example, we have some manufacturing company, we have some food manufacturing company, where we have the product is manufactured in multiple models. Let's say we have a product, that product is manufactured at different way. We have 100 ml product for 10 rupees. We have 500 ml for product for 40 rupees. We have, let's say, 1 liter product for 1000 rupees. We have, these are different values. So daily we eat some biscuits or we buy some products, right? So every product has a SKU in it. So 10 rupees, whatever which we are buying, it is one SKU. The 50 rupees one we are buying it, it is a second version of a SKU. And the 100 rupees one which you are buying, it's a third version of the SKU. So, and simple as an explanation, SKU means stock keeping unit. So people who have background in MBA, so those people can easily understand what is a SKU is like. So it is the model of the product which we are buying and which we are deploying in our area or our location. So let's say if you bought some product of 10 rupees, you will be getting 100 ml in it, and that will comprise of some X carbohydrates, and that will comprise of some other nutritional information will be there, right? So the complete package, you will get it for 10 rupees. The same thing you will have it in Azure. It's like you have multiple SKUs. So basing on the SKU which you select, the multiple things will pop up. If you select a higher SKU, you will get a higher RAM, you will get a higher CPU, you will get a higher cores, you will get a higher support. So it is like completely based on your requirement and the usage which you are planning to do. And so OS disk type. What is a disk type? You are using premium LRS. So that is a model of the disk. We have different kind of disks. We have different kind of replications which we have: LRS, GRS, RAGRS. So different kind of things are like. Here LRS means like local redundant storage. If you use GRS, geo redundant storage. If you use RAGRS, it is read only geo redundant storage. So basing on the data which you are planning. So if you use LRS, you have created one file name, what we say, some, you have one file name like AZ900. So let's say we have one file. The file is a, let's say, let's take a PPT document. So our PPT document name is like AZ900. So if you are using LRS storage, what happens is like your AZ900 document is copied in 3 times and it is stored in the same data center. So let's say if at one disk is corrupted, you can retrieve your data from the other 2 disks. That is the reason we will be choosing the type of storage. Let's say if you are using GRS, what happens is like your AZ900 file, text file which you have created, right? So that will be copied 3 times only, but it would be sent to different Azure locations. So let's say if one data center is in some crash, you can retrieve it from another data center. So wherever you are, your data will be completely safe, and there is no tension that some data will be lost or some information will be tampered or something like. So it, nothing will be like that. Everything is safe because you have multiple set of copies which are created and stored at different locations. So that is a type of storage we have, and I will explain you what are the different type of storages which we have in Azure as well. So don't worry. So here, if you come here, you have some security group rules as well. So what are the type of ports you are allowing? So destination port is 3389. So what is the access? You are giving allow access for it. And what is the priority, and what type of port protocol it is? It is a TCP based protocol, HTTP based protocol, or else a UDP based protocol. So you need to define those all things. So these are some of the things which are enclosed in your what we say ARM template. So Azure Resource Manager template. So let's take a break over here. If you have any queries, please do post it. So if no queries, then we can proceed ahead. Just give me a second. I'll just check if something is there. LRS, local redundant storage. So we'll be discussing this as a part of storage as well. So we have, then we can do it. Can you please share me the PDF files? Yeah, sure, PDF files, but PDF files we can share it, but I need to check on it. Yesterday I also said, and again I'm making clear to all the audience, for PDF files I need to check on it. I'll be sharing with you by the end of the sessions. Yeah. So somebody saying go slowly. I'm sorry. Today I'm completely going slow. I'll just try to do it again. Okay. Okay, then I think this is fine. If you have any queries, please do post it. Again, we'll be coming back over here and we'll be checking one by one. Okay, so this is related to your ARM templates. So next one would be your core Azure architectural components. So as per your information which you see over here, so what are the things? So core Azure architectural components. So we have discussed what is a region, what is a zone, what is a group, what is an ARM manager, what are benefits. So we'll be discussing now about these all products. What is a virtual machine, what are the scale set, app services, application gateway, content element. So we'll be discussing these things, some of these things as well. Okay, so coming to compute. So as a part of architectural components, what we have is like, as a part of compute, we have these things: virtual machine scale, virtual machines, virtual machine scale set, app services, and functions. So how do we check this and how do we understand these things? So the first one will be your virtual machines. So people already know it, and we've shown it twice how to do a virtual machine and what the components will be selecting. And when it comes to networking, I will show it to you what is a different kind of layers and what is your IP we are using. So we'll be discussing that prior next to this. And coming to the next one would be your virtual machine scale set. What is a scale set? Yesterday we've discussed a topic like elasticity, scale in and scale out. So see, this is your virtual machine scale sets. Let's try to create one. So what it is doing. So here what happens is like whatever resources you are using. This is the point, scaling. Yeah. So this is the main area when you are doing your scaling. So what happens is like initial your instance count would be 2. 2, it means the number of virtual machines in the scale set is 0 to 100. It means what happens is like yesterday we have discussed the basic information of a scale in, scale out, and elasticity. So when you are when you, let's say you have a data center, and in your data center your machines which you are running over there has a capability to host around 100 users at one time. So let's say if one user come to your office and requesting, planning to buy something, your machines or your infrastructure or else your apps which you have created in Azure cannot withstand it. It's like not in Azure, anywhere. If you are using an on-premise, if you are using a local IT center as well, it cannot withstand it. So at that point in time, we will be using this scaling options. So in the scaling options, what we say is like uh, to withhold 100 users, we'll have two CPUs. Let's say I have two CPUs and two CPU cores are holding 100 users. But now the situation is like there is a year-end sale which I have planned. Mine is an online portal and I planned an year-end sale. So at that point of time, I can expect heavy traffic and heavy users to be hitting my URL. So let's say on a daily basis, we have 100 only, but as it is a sale or else as there is some other things are going on, then I need to increase my CPUs. Let's say if you are using a physical data center, you cannot buy a CPU, attach it after your sale. You cannot sell it for you cannot sell it again in OLX. So to fix that kind of issues, we bought a concept called in Azure scale in, scale out, and scaling. So for two CPUs, it can withhold up to 100 users. Let's say we have 200 users at point of time and we need 4 CPUs. So the machine and the app is intelligent and it would automatically scale up, and 2 more CPUs comes and automatically attaches with your application, so that it will help you to withhold the other 100 users as well. So how can we attain this? We can attain this by using your scaling options which we have in Azure. So initial instance count is 2. So basic should be 2. So let's say I have 2 instances. So scaling policies like custom, and how custom and why custom. So see, minimum number of VMs are 1, maximum number of VMs are 10. Let's say scale out and scale in. So scale out, what, let's say your CPU threshold is increasing 75%. Then what happens? A new CPU would come and attach it. So that if you have one CPU and it is 75%, if it crosses 75, a new CPU would come and attach, and 75%, whatever is the CPU utilization is there, it will be cut down and distributed between both the CPUs. So that is hack that can happen by using scale set. So how can it understand? We will be what's we call beforehand we will be notifying over here. Let's say if my CPU threshold crosses 75%, how many VMs should increase? It should increase 1 VM. It is enough for me. Let's say if I want 4 VMs, I will mention as 4 virtual machines. If my CPU utilization crosses 75%, 4 virtual machines will come and attach to my application, and it can manage all the load or all the users who are logging onto my machine. And scaling. Scaling means whatever, let's say if my CPU utilization is below 25% or 25%, then what is the point of maintaining 6 CPUs? It's of no use. Again, unnecessary. I need to pay the charges. So it will be cut, and it will cut down, decrease by 1. So what happens? The number, see, it is clearly mentioned, the number of virtual machines to remove to the scale set when the scale is auto scale rule is triggered. So if it is 25%, one virtual machine will be removed. So I don't want 1. So I want all the 4 to be removed, because there is no point. If it is 25%, then utilization is very low. So then if the utilization is not there, there is no point of me expending my money on resources. So you can automatically decrease and you can automatically increase using this virtual machine scale set. This is a very important thing when you are preparing for your AZ900. You may definitely expect 1 question from scaling and around 2 questions from your virtual machines. And the next one would be your functions. So what is your functions and how do we understand the name functions. So what we say is like, so let's say you are planning, so you don't want virtual machines. You don't need virtual machines. You just have a code, you want to immediately deploy it and test it. You don't have a computer with you, but you have a code with you. You have deployed your code to GitHub, and you can retrieve from GitHub, and you want to test it, or else you want to edit it, modify, whatever you want. So you want to do some changes. So then this functions app would definitely help you at that point. How this will help is like, it will integrate itself with the external third party things like your GitHub or your other things, other app centers, other what we saw with what we call code hosting websites, and it will execute in the cloud and it will immediately give you a response. So what the kind of language you are using. So for me, let's say I have a Python code and I'm selecting Python. So mine is like Python test. I'll just keep it like Python test. And I have code. I don't have a Docker with me. The name is not available, it seems. Let's take it as I'll just give this name and I will select this resource group. So remember, whatever apps you are installing or whatever apps you are deploying, everything needs to be hosted in one resource group and everything is responsible for one subscription. Definitely, those are the common things whenever you are going ahead. Whatever you are doing, it will be in contact with your subscription and in contact with your resource group. Without those two, you cannot proceed ahead. So okay, I want to use check with my Python one, and my version I want is my Python version is 3.8, and region would be US. So let's review and create. So you have other options as well, but as of now, we'll just stick to this thing. So what happens is like, it will deploy an app, and by using that app, you can connect to your external third-party vendors and third-party websites, and you can bring your code to Microsoft Cloud, and you can deploy over here, and you can test it. So if you want to, you have a handsome of code on your local machine. If you have code deployed on GitHub, if you have code deployed on some other website, you can just pull it. You can pull it from your Microsoft Cloud. You can execute it, and you can check the test results here itself. So this is this. Yesterday we have seen it. This we call as a deployment, and this deployment it's like majority of the deployments would complete maximum of 15 to 20 minutes. It doesn't take more because everything will run in a it's run in a very quick speed. So there is no point of waiting or no point of thinking like it is taking too long time. So everything is fast enough. And if you are using this cloud functions app, this we can say it like software as a service, because you are not using infrastructure, you are not using a platform. So you can use it, you can say it as a platform as a service. So you are not using anything, you are just deploying your code over here and just giving a test how it is running and how I can modify it. So that is your one of your function app. So see, how can you call it? I'll just try to check it. Okay, so see how it is asking. You need to have a Visual Studio, or if you have any other tools. Okay, how we'll be doing it? You'll be doing with HTTP one, and you'll be deploying to here and deployment slots, deployment center. There are multiple things. So each and everything, if you go deeper, you have so many things to explore. But what we suggest is like, as the main intention of AZ900 is like, you need to understand and you need to describe everything which is available in cloud as per the syllabus or the content which Microsoft has shared. So if you are much fascinated and if you want to definitely proceed your careers, you can select the respective area and you can you can do an R&D over there. So these are the compute resources which we have as a part of Azure. So before going to the next one, let's take some questions. Okay, Azure account, how many days it is valid for a free version? People are asking. Yes, you will get to run the resources for 1 month, but your account is valid till 1 year. So let's say if you have not, after completion of your 1 month, people would be, you will getting continuous triggers from Microsoft asking you to take purchase a permanent account. Let's say if you didn't purchase a permanent account, what are all the changes, or what are all the websites, or what are all the apps you have deployed on the portal, it would be deleted immediately. Is there any difference between HTTPS and other protocol? Yes, you have multiple differences. You have, let's say, HTTPS, the portal which you are using is HTTPS, but when you are connecting to a virtual desktop, you will be not using HTTPS. You will be using an RDP. So these are different kind of things which we have using the network protocols. So that is one. Okay, in scale out, there is duration in minutes, 10 minutes. What is that? So it will wait, it will check for 10 minutes. Let's say for 10 minutes, your CPU is utilization is below 25%, then it will remove the things. If it is, let's say in 10 minutes, if something happened, that will be removed. You cannot, things cannot be changed again. Okay, while working with functions, automatic storage is created. Yes. So while working with functions, yes, your storage is created. So basing on the data you deploy, or else basing on the things which you do, the storage amounts will be cost. There are charges for your storage as well. You need to pay for the storage, how much you are using it. Okay, what is a Docker? Yes, Docker is something similar to your virtual machine. But what happens is, like in virtual machine, you have you have one operating system, one network, and everything is single over there. But in Docker, you have containers over there, so you can deploy different virtual machines to one container, and it is a similar kind of concept which we use in virtual machine and Docker. Okay, can resource group be considered as a folder to keep our virtual machines? Yeah, sure. It's not a virtual machine. We can say it as resources. It's like a folder. It's simple to say. It's like in a normal, in a layman language, we can say like that. Does storage account is responsible for holding the code or any else other reason? No, storage account. It's like when you are using a virtual machine, you will be selecting your storage account. What? Because you'll be having different tiers over there. Cool storage, hot storage, archive storage. So there you will get a chance to select your respective storages, and basing on the way you are utilizing it, you need to pay. Okay. Okay, Pawan, it is fine. You're most welcome. Okay, if there are no questions, I will go to the next one. So you guys getting me right? You're following me right? If you are not understanding, or if I'm not clear, please do post in the chat, or you can tell me right now itself. I'll just try to modify the way. Only 2 responses. I think others are not following, or what? Okay, so there is another more question. How to ensure that there is no loss of data if availability zone is given as 1? Yes, availability zone given as 1, what we can say is, like, whenever you store your information, every information will be copied into three, you'll have 3 copies. So if you are using one availability zone, it means your 3 virtual machines, and what I said is, like, there will be 3 machines running in one area. So what we say, only one region is responsible for your data. Let's say if you are using 2-3 virtual availability zones, it's like you're using only one virtual machine. But if you're using 2 availability sets, then you are in contact with 6 different virtual machines. So it is a bit what we call, it's a complex environment. You need to understand how we are using one, how why we are using 2. So that one. Okay, any Azure virtual training days are happening now? Yes, Azure virtual training days will happen every month. So it's like, I believe on Friday we will be having a session how to register for virtual training days, or other assessments, or how can we redeem the code. So those things we can discuss on Friday. So please stick on Friday, so it will be better. So we can clear it on that day. And Kareem's like teaching is a bit faster. I'm trying to cut down and go slowly. I'm really sorry. I just try to be a bit more slower than this one. Okay, so this is done. So next you will get your networking concepts here. Yes, this is your networking concepts which we need to focus on. So what are these and what networking concepts we need to say is like, uh, sorry, the first one is your virtual network. Virtual network. Virtual network means the network which you have hosted for your different virtual machines. See, this is one of a virtual network which I have deployed. SAP deployment VNet. VNet is called as virtual network. So this is a virtual network. So virtual network and you have connected devices over there. Network interfaces. Network interfaces we call it as NIC cards, network interface cards. So it is simple like a zone where you have multiple network where we connect to an internet, or else it is a complete networking area where we have different subnets configured on it. In every subnet we will be having different systems connected to it. So let's say, simple to say, you all people are using a routers at your home. You will be having the Wi-Fi routers, right? So in Wi-Fi routers, what happens is like, you can create your Wi-Fi router is connecting to one of a subnet in the virtual network or the network of your network provider. Because for, let's say, you are using you are in central, let's say, North Andhra. So North Andhra, we can say like it comes under one subnet. If you are in South Andhra, you can say like it will be coming under one subnet. So it is basing on the area, it is basing on the zone which you are connecting, and it is basing on the different ways which you have. So it is called as a virtual network where every device inside of it can communicate with each other via private IP addresses. So please be make sure we have two IP addresses. One is a public IP address. Second one is your private IP address. Public IP address which is visible, and if you are using computers, you can quickly open your Google and you can just type like, what is my public IP address? You will get your public IP address, means your IP address of your router. And if you want to see your private IP address, you can quickly open your command prompt and you can give a command like ipconfig, and you will get like 10.0.0. something. So that is your private IP address. So in virtual network, all the resources inside of it communicate with each other via your private IP address, which is safe enough and it is not exposed to internet. So the attacks or other connectivity things which we know, right? So we can try to reduce those things. Next comes your load balancer. So what is a load balancer? So this is a directory where you can see your load balancers. So simple to say, what is a load balancer and how we run a load balancer. You have three apps. Sorry, you have one app which is running on three CPUs. So I can connect to the application via CPU1 or CPU2 or CPU3 because it is hosted on the three things. So let's say if all the India users are connecting via CPU1, all US users are connecting via CPU2, if some other regions are connecting via CPU3, then it works fine. But some days what happens is like, if app where CPU1 is not running, so then you can route you then what happens is like, you need to route all your users connecting to CPU1 to CPU2. Then what happens, load on CPU2 will increase and it will create, and your CPU2 will crash, it will not run. CPU3 will run because you are not routing people to CPU3. So in order to prevent these kind of issues, we'll be using a load balancer in front of your three CPUs, so that whenever a person hits an internet request, or else whenever a HTTP or HTTP request is sent, it will be cached by your load balancer and it will be distributed equally between your backend applications, whatever it is. Let's say if it is a web app, or else if it is a virtual machine, if it is a resource, whatever it is. But if you have a load balancer in front of it, then what happens is like, it will hold all your what we say layer 4 type of protocols like TCP protocol, UDP protocol, and it would segregate your protocols to your backend applications, so that it will not create heavy utilization or high CPU utilization, high CPU time, high memory. These kind of issues will be resolved. So that will come on your load balancer. Third one will be your VPN gateway. So what is your VPN gateway? You can search over it. You can get an app, VPN gateway. So your application gateways. This is NAT gateway. Virtual network. So virtual network gateways, we have different kind of gateways. So let's create. So see here, you will get different kind of resources which we are using as a part of Azure. So let's search for networking. Yeah, here networking. Okay. So here you can see different resources. You can see application gateway, you can see virtual WAN, you can see firewall router. So if you are seeing this preview kind of things, right? So it means it is not publicly available. We can use it, but it takes some more time to develop it and make sure it is working as expected. So when coming to these things, what we say, so what we say, it's like sorry, what we're VPN gateway. So VPN gateway is like you are running from your local machine in some location. You are at some location. So you need to connect to cloud. So if you are going via public internet or public gateway or public model, what happens is like you can easily expose your IP address to internet. So that is the reason we create a VPN where all your internet connections or all your connections are secure enough, and it would be only connecting to you from your on-premise version. It means from your local machine to target system and maps. What are all the firewalls? What are all the issues which we have, right? So let's say people who have much knowledge on downloading what we call games or internet stuff or internet movies from websites. So we'll be using VPNs, right? Why we'll be using VPNs? We will be masking our existing IP addresses. We'll be creating some masks in front of our IP addresses, and we'll be accessing the target ones, and we can get it. We can download it. So that is a main motto, just to make sure we are safe enough. No point of exposing our IP addresses or our ways to internet. So that is your virtual VPN gateway. Next comes your application gateway. So application gateway and VPN gateway are almost similar, but in VPN gateway you have what we say. Sorry, not VPN gateway. Load balancer. Load balancer and application gateway are almost similar because load balancer, it will be using layer 7 protocols like TCP or UDP, but in application gateway it will be using your layer 7 protocols like HTTP, HTTPS, WebSocket, TCL, cookie based authentications. So those are different kind of ways where you can connect to your respective application as expected. So it is one of the strongest way when to ensure your network is safe. Next one would be your content delivery network. What is a content delivery network? Content delivery network, we call it like you have images deployed on your website. So that images is running on MBs. It is not in KBs. So it is running on MBs. So let's say when I hit a URL, it will go to my local internet center, local data center. And from there, it will be redirected to my country's wide head center. And then it will go to your target hosting virtual machine or else target web service, and it need to consume the information from there and it needs to return back. So this is a long process. When you have content in your website which contains heavy information or heavy images, videos, so how do we access those things? So for those things we have content delivery network. So when we are running it, what happens is like whatever the information or whatever the large files which we are using, those all information will be cached as static objects or dynamic objects which we use. Everything will be cached onto your local internet, and we can access it via POP. POP means point of presence, closest point of presence, via your POP protocols, and you can access it as fast as possible when comparing to the other ones. So it may take you time for the first time, but when you have already connected once, everything is cached, and whenever you are trying to retrieve it, it will be very fast and you can get your information much at a very much lesser time when compared to the first one. So this one would be your networking part in Azure. So now questions time. Okay. Why people are complaining my voice? I think my laptop is problem or is my mic is problem. That is the reason I didn't bought my mic today. Okay, so questions now. Is there any questions or we can proceed with the next ones? Okay, sorry, there are ones. When the online traffic is heavy, will there be any vulnerabilities of server crashing? Example like Amazon? Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely there will be a chance of server crashing. That is 100%. So that is only the reason we'll be using what we say load balancers or application gateways. So it will definitely help you to segregate what are all the traffic or what all the requests we are getting from different areas, and it will deploy it in a what we say in a correct simple fashion. Again my voice is not audible. I'm not going anywhere, I'm not roaming, I'm sitting at the same place. Can someone confirm, is my voice audible or it is still not clear? Yeah, I'm getting like symbols also, it means it is working, I believe. Okay, so I think Joe, I think I've tried to clear your query. Yeah, it is audible. Yeah, our host also confirmed it. Okay, nice. Okay, I think only one question as a part of networking. I think it will be very big to understand for the first time. It's like going on, you can do it. Okay, can you give me an example as Amazon sale or Flipkart sale days for load balancer? For load balancer. Sorry, I'm not sure on this question. Can you please repeat and be more specific on that one? Okay, scaling out versus load balancer. Yes, scaling out versus load balancer. Scaling out, load balancer, the main functionality is like segregating all your informations. Whatever the request which you got, it will just balance it. Let's say you have 100 requests. If you have 10 machines, it will send 10 requests for each machine. It's not like it will take everything to one machine and it will ask the machine to run. It will just aggregate 10, 10, 10 each in a correct way and it will run the show. Okay. For the first time, does the website having heavy load takes time to load? Explain. And after getting the cache data according to CDN, the next time it will be retrieving data first. Yes. So yes. So what we can say is like it is based on the website you are using. Let's say the main fundamental, the main reason of using this content delivery network is like it will take some time. It's like if for the first time it needs to cache your what are all what we say it needs to cache your static images or your dynamic images which are hosted on that respective server. So for that it may take lesser time when compared to the other things. Let's say if it is on cloud, it will take lesser time when compared to an on-premise. And then what happens is like whatever the information is cached, it will be stored on the what we say data center which is near to you, the internet provider center which is near to you. It is not like if you have information in US, it will not keep in UK, it will not keep in South America, it will not keep in some other location. Whatever information is there, it will be sent to the closest internet center, internet provider center, which is near to you, so that whenever you are accessing it, it will show you the faster information rather than going to the target host every time. It will get in contact with it and it will take the data, and you can do it as a POP protocol. You can do it very fast as expected than the first time. Okay, someone asked like difference between VNet and VPN. Okay, VNet is your virtual network. You will be using your VPN to connect to VNet. Simple answer, I think. Okay, maybe the VPN is a subset of VNet because VPN is a private number. No, no, no. It's like both are related to one concept only, but you can say not VPN. Subnet is a subset of virtual network, that is VNet. You will have subnets, right? So subnets is like it's a blocks in your virtual networks, and that blocks contains different resources. So subnet is a subset of your virtual network, and you will be using your VPN. VPN can help you to connect to that respective subnet or the respective virtual network, and you can run with your work. Okay, if we are far from native location, it will take time. No, it will point to whatever near to you. Let's say for every 2 districts we may have one network center or one data center. It's not like simple example. I'm not able to get you. Yeah, I can tell you one thing. See, we have 4 districts in coastal Andhra Pradesh. Let's say Srikakulam, Vijayanagaram, Visakhapatnam, and East Godavari. We have individual network providers and network centers at every district. So you are accessing it from Vijayanagaram. It will not be in East Godavari. It will be in Vijayanagaram only. So whenever you are accessing it, it will be as closest as your location. It will not be at some other location, and it will be not at your some other area, so that again your internet routing should happen, and it would take some time. So it is not like that. Okay, I think if this is fine, then we can go to the next things. So next one would comes to your storage. So this is a main thing when coming in Azure. So I'll show you different storage things. Storage. So see, these are the 4 storage classifications which we have in Azure: containers, file shares, tables, and queues. In container, we call it as blob storage. Here, what happens is like information, whatever the information which you have. I'm really sorry. So whatever information which you have, which is a structured data or an unstructured data, everything you can store it in your blob storage. Simple to say, let's say you are trying, I think in CSE people would know the concept of web scraping or extraction of data from websites. So when you are doing that concept, you will be what is called retrieving information of a structured and a non-structured data. So structured in the sense it has some structure. It will be in an order. There will be a format. There will be an see the things if you are seeing over here. This is a structured data. The overview, activity, tags, and all these things. This is a structured data. If you are talking about a non-structured data, some tables, graphs, pictures, videos, these are all non-structured data. So all the type of data, all type of structures, whether structured data, non-structured data, anything, you can store it in your containers that is based on blobs. Blob is a concept in your containers. Next one would be your file shares. File shares, what we call file shares. It's like your NFS and SMB file shares. So you have a virtual disk, you have a local, on your local computer, you will be using some disk kind of, let's say, external hard disk. Simple to say, an external hard disk of 1 TB or 2 TB which you carry when you go out. So that is an external hard disk. So if you bring that one and if you attach it, you can do it as an NFS file share, and you can retrieve your information from your external hard disk which is attached to your computer or which is attached to your server in that way. That we call as file shares. Next one would be tables. So majority of the people know what is tables, and let's say every multiple databases store information in tables. If you are using an SQL, if you are using Oracle, if you are using a HANA database, HANA comes in SAP. So if you are using multiple databases like this, so every information, whatever information which we are storing in a database will be stored in a form of table, and that you can try to store the same thing in tables. That we call it as table storage. And the last one comes your queue storage. So what is queue storage and why we are using queue storage? So queue storage is like, it is used to store your messages. So you have multiple emails running, you have multiple chats running between your Skype and your Microsoft Teams, your local messengers which you are using. So those kind of information is there. Right? Simple. It's the base of your queues is like, it can be utilized to save all your what we call messages in it, so you can retrieve it as fast as possible whenever you need it. So this is different type of storages which Azure supports, And basing on the what we call requirement, we will be creating one container, we will be creating one file share, we'll be creating one table, and we'll be utilizing it. So that is your what we call storage. So manage a disk and backup and recovery. Manage a disk is like you will be attaching your external disks to Azure and you can run your show. But what happens is like external disks or manage a disk, what happens is like we'll not have a control on our cloud account because everything is hosted in Microsoft's data center. So what we need to do is like we need to ship our disks. We need to have an external hard disk, let's say 20 TB, 30 TB external hard disk. We need to copy information on it and we need to send that as a courier to Microsoft data center, and there those people will attach your disk to our cloud server, and then you can copy the information from that disk to your cloud, or else vice versa, here to there or there to here. That is as per the requirement. And the last one would be your backup and recovery. Recovery, it's like it's a simple thing which everybody knows. Backup means it takes a snapshot. It takes A to Z information of your virtual machine and it stores it in a file. And when you are doing a recovery, it will be restoring same information back onto the area where you want to recover it. So you can do a backup recovery on your local computer as well. You can go to My Accessories and click on backups. You can just try to do a backup. You can understand how backups would run. So that is also available in Azure, and we can run it. So when coming as backups we are discussing, right? I would like to share one more information with you. We call as vault accounts. Show you backup vaults. So here you will be storing your backup information, backup vaults, create a backup vault, and you will be storing all your information and all the backups which you have created. Everything will come and store over here. So basing on the requirement, you can restore it or you can do a daily backup. So it's based on your requirement. So recovery service vaults. So all the recovery, when you are doing any recoveries of your machines, you will be doing over here. So see, it is clearly displayed. A disaster recovery data protection strategy keeps your business running. So recovery service vaults, backup vaults, whatever you are doing, these all will be stored in Azure and you can retrieve it. And the cost, everything is cost, as I already said. So if you are doing a backup, you will be having data classified into three parts. Three parts is like one is a cool data, another is a hot data, and another is a archive data. Cool data means we'll be taking that data maybe not daily, but sometimes whenever we need, but not daily. Maybe once in a month, once in a year. I don't think once in a month also, once in a year, twice in a year. In that way, we call as cool. Hot data means the data which we daily use. Whenever we want, daily when we log in, daily we open our, let's say now everything is virtual. We have Microsoft Teams where your college people or your office people are sharing you documents. Documents in the sense your information documents, your class notes or whatever it is. So you will be daily opening it. You'll be daily opening the Excel file. You'll be daily opening your document file, reading it, going through it, editing it. So if you are daily processing something, it comes under hot data. Archive data means maybe in future after 10 years down the line, if you want to see something, then you will be using your archive data. So every day, everywhere costs are there. For cool data, let's just for example, I will tell you, for cool data, it is 1 rupee. For hot data, it is 3 rupees. But for archive data, it is 4 rupees, something like that. So basing on the requirement and basing on the data which you are using, everything is classified like this, and you will be retrieving whenever you want. So that is a part of storage. So now you can post your queries. Some people are saying like there is some voice issue from my end. So can people can confirm? I think it is working as expected only, but if there is an issue, please post here. Maybe 1 2 people are getting voice issues. I don't think it is at all level. Yeah. Okay, what is the difference between GoDaddy hosting and Azure hosting? Okay, what is GoDaddy hosting is like, see, somebody say like nothing is coming. Can someone confirm in the chat? You are giving thumbs up symbols, but people are still saying that there is some voice issues. I think crazy with you. I think people are saying like it is fine and clear. Maybe it is at your end. I'm really sorry because I'm being a bit frightened because it is an individual issue. I cannot say anything over there for that one. Okay. Anyways, so let's not divert from the topic. Let's stick to it. So someone has asked me a question. GoDaddy hosting and Azure hosting. GoDaddy hosting, you will get websites over there. Let's say you have a business and you are planning to take a website, some website name. So my business is like I sell food. I have a food business. So I want to take a website name like myfood.in, or as let's say mynativefood.in, something like that. So that is a name of the website you want to host. But where will the application reside? See, you have the names like, see, you all are connected in www.airmeet.com. So airmeet.com is the hosting which is given by GoDaddy. It will give your website names and it will sell it. When it comes to Azure hosting, when you click www.airmeet.com, it is, you are not getting an empty page. You are getting something, we are chatting, we are discussing. So there is a backend coding, right? So that kind of hosting you will get in Azure. That is your application hosting. So we will be connecting your website to your app, which is hosted in Azure via the Azure protocols, Azure DNS, Azure services. And then whenever you are hitting airmeet.com, the application which is designed in the backend will come up and you can use it. Yeah, I think Mohan Raju, thanks for supporting me. I think YouTube streaming is already active, I believe. Okay, could you once discuss on how the test is gonna place? Okay, I will discuss it at the last session because as of now I cannot discuss it. So I will be discussing about the test, the model of the test, registering for the test, and on yesterday's session I have told you the four methods, right? How we will be registering for test and all those things. So those things will be registered or will be I'll discuss on one day. It's like I think by end of Thursday we can complete the training sessions, and Friday we'll be completely discussing on this extra stuff. So I will discuss with you, so don't worry. So how many days working Azure Free Account? Yeah, I already answered. It is for 30 days. So whatever we are seeing on my screen, the apps I'm deploying, virtual machines I'm creating, whatever it is. So all those things, you will be having a validity of 1 month. So after 1 month, everything will be deleted. And for the services and for your account, it is valid till 1 year. And after 1 year, it might not work. And for the 1 month, you will get 13,300 rupees as a credit. And that too, I think yesterday also I got some questions in Telegram, people asking how to take account in Azure. So you have two ways we already discussed. The first one would be your credit card. So you'll be not charged on your credit card. You need to provide your credit card, and around 2 rupees will be deducted from your card, and it will be also reversed once the confirmation is done from the bank side. Then that is one way. And the second way is like if you have Office 365 account. So you have all people are connecting to Microsoft Teams and listening your college lectures, right? So at that time, what happens is like as a college wise, your college might buy Office 365 subscription. So if you all users have Office 365 subscription, then you can take your free account, because by your what we call as your college as your approver, or else your college account as your head, you all people who are holding your Office 365 accounts can get free Azure accounts, and that too applies the same principles. 1 month and 1 year. 1 month 13,300 rupees as a credit, and you can run, execute, and just try to learn over there. Okay, can we get data disposed at cloud? I mean, we have worked on some data for specific time and we paid for it and it's all over. So now can we again access the data disposed at cloud? No, it's like it is based on your way. Let's say if you took a backup of your data, that backup will have 14 days validity in Azure. So within 14 days, if you delete that file also, you can retrieve it. But if it crossed 14 days, you cannot get your file. So that you need to take care in cloud. And also what all information is required, only that needs to be maintained in cloud. Let's say I don't want, I'm hosting the unnecessary files and I'm hosting the unnecessary servers, then you cannot run it. It will not run it. It will definitely charge for everything, whether you are utilizing it or not, but you are using their infrastructure, you are using their resources. So definitely you need to pay for that. At the end of the month, you will get a bill to your credit card and automatically it will be deducted from your card. Okay, Office 365 ID, yes. Okay, you are most welcome, Lokesh. Okay. Okay, then I think we can proceed to the next section, and that would be last section for today. Okay, so this I forgot to tell you. IoT, Big Data and Analytics, and Azure Tools. So what is Azure Tools and how we are doing? So portal.azure.com. This is one tool to access all your Azure resources. So I have these many resources. I have accessed these many resources in last 1 hour or 2 hours, 3 hours, some more time. So to access all these things, I will go to via portal.azure.com. The website is same for everybody. It is not something different. Same like google.com, going over there, signing with your ID for Gmail, and you will be getting mail.gmail.com. That is the same name for everybody who is accessing Gmail. In the same way, portal.azure.com is same name you will get whenever you are logging into your cloud. And there are other ways to connect to your cloud. The first one would be your portal.azure.com. Second one would be your Cloud Shell. If you click on this button over here, right, a pop-up will open here. This is your Cloud Shell. Let's say I didn't create any storage as of now. So let's create it. Okay, it is there. Can't do it. I'm creating a local storage account. This is not your big storage accounts which we are using. So this storage account is used to host my what we say CLI, command line interface. So whatever the queries which I'm doing or how we are doing, all those things we will be using. So if you have a storage account only, you can run your queries from the CLI and you can proceed ahead. I think there is storage account and use storage. Okay. So when you want to run your queries using a command line, it's like you don't want to run it with what we say. If you don't want to run it with portal.azure.com, you can run via your command line interface. So that is your CLI. That is command line interface, and CLI is present in your portal.azure.com. And if you want to run a command line interface without connecting to portal.azure.com, you can do it via your Microsoft PowerShell on your local machine. So you need to install your PowerShell on your local machine and you need to connect to Azure. It's like everything is based on queries and commands. There is nothing to do with your mouse. Everything is based on queries only. So you need to run your query, you need to run your command, and basing on that, you will be getting your information which you have requested. Let's say if I want to see how many resource groups are there in my subscription, I will just quickly go to portal.azure.com and I'll click on resource groups. So I'll get the list in this way, which we earlier seen. So in this way, I can see my resource groups. But now, if you are planning to run it with your Cloud Shell or Azure CLI, you need to run with your queries, and basing on your queries only, it will give you a response and you can run it. And that too, you have two patterns. One is your Bash and your PowerShell. Bash is for your CLI and PowerShell is for when communicating via your local machine. You can do it from portal.azure.com also, but if some people might not be interested to connect to portal.azure.com every time, so they can do it from their PowerShell as well. They can just download the PowerShell to your local computer and use the query login AZ login query and log into their cloud account, and they can start their work. So this is connections and tools which we have in cloud. And the last one for today is like your IoT. So IoT applications. So what is this IoT? What is IoT central applications? What is IoT hub and all these things? So what is IoT hub? What is IoT applications? And let's say what is IoT central? You have three things in IoT which are available. So first one would be your IoT hub. Yes. If you are search in your Azure marketplace, you will get all the services which are available in the naming IoT. So these all services are available. So IoT hub we have, and these are different things which are connected to IoT. So you have so many services basing on the requirements only we'll be doing, and machine learning as well, analytics, blockchain, compute we already discussed, container. Some person has asked for Dockers. Those come under containers. Databases. You have different databases in Azure. Let's say you have Cosmos DB, you have MS SQL, you have data lakes, you can install your SAP HANA database. So you have so many things. So many things you can run in your database. SQL managed instance or Synapse Analytics. So Synapse Analytics is like previously we call it as SQL data warehousing. So now it's changed to SAP. Sorry, I'm thinking I'm saying SAP. So it's now changed to Azure Synapse Analytics. So what it actually does is like it is used in your data warehousing projects. It will be used at your data warehousing area, where when you plan to what we say get the data, modify the data, run data jobs, try to clear the clutter in a data, try to clean the data. So there are so many activities which are happening with data. Predict your future analysis basing on your existing data, artificial intelligence or analytics purpose. So you can use all these apps and all these different things which are available on cloud. So there is no point of installing anything, no point of buying their license, nothing like that. Just come here, you just deploy it to your resource group, you deploy it to your subscription, and you can start working on it. So as a part of IoT, so everybody know IoT, what is IoT, Internet of Things. So when it comes to IoT hub application, which we have in Azure, it's like it is used for your two-way communication. So IoT device, what is an IoT device? IoT device is like your, what we say, your AC. You have your air conditioned AC at your home, and if you want to run it with IoT, you will just try to attach a chip and try to automate it. But who will be communicating with it? There will be some application saying it like you need to run at 26 degrees at 6 p.m. You need to change it to 16 degrees at 9 p.m. So there will be some mechanism, right? So for that communication, we have IoT Hub, which is available in Microsoft Azure. That is one of an app which we use. And we have IoT Central. What is IoT Central is like? It is a central tool to monitor all your IoT applications, sorry, all your IoT bots. So you have different IoT devices, what we called installed. So you have one IoT on your computer, one IoT on your AC, one IoT on your fan, one IoT on your some in-home things. So if you want to monitor everything at one location, if you want to see whether one device is running or not, if you want to see some other device is taking the required actions or not. So how to monitor all those things? To monitor all those things, we will be deploying IoT Central in Microsoft Azure, and where we can add all the devices and we can monitor it from there. So whether how it is working, whether it is connecting, whether it is communicating, whether it is high utilization, whether it is out of network, whether it is not running as expected. So many things are there, right? So everything you can monitor from IoT Central, and IoT Hub is for communication in a two-way. So that is as per your IoT. And as per your analytics applications, you have your Azure Data Lake and Azure Data Warehousing, which is converted to Azure Synapse. I'm sorry. So you have so many applications like this. which are used for your data analytics, Azure HD Insight, Power BI embedded, machine learning. So many apps you have like this. So it's like you have your MATLAB production server as well. People from electronics and communication background would be using this multiple times. So it is based on the requirement. It is based on the app you want. So and it is also divided into further platforms. Like for big data, these apps you can use. For data analytics, you can use this one. For data insights, you will be using this. For predictive analysis of your future sales, of your future market trend, you will be using this. Real time and streaming analytics, you can use this. So there are different classifications which we have in analytics. So basing on the requirement, we'll be selecting one, we will be deploying one, and we'll be running it in Azure. So when you are running these things, right, you will be running software as a service. Let's say if it comes to your platform, which we shown you, right, for functions app, that comes as a platform. Infrastructure, your virtual machine, your virtual network, what are the compute resources, storage, those are there, right? Those comes under your compute environment. So by this, I believe some parts of your Azure services is completed. We can discuss so many things over here. So let's say we have discussed about Azure tools like Azure Portal, Partial, CLI. I think I need to show you Azure Advisor. I'll show it. What is Azure Advisor and why we are using Azure Advisor? So let me wait. I'll just take the questions now and then I'll go to Azure Advisor. Please do post your questions now. We can discuss this. Okay. Can we create an ARM template and invoke it from Partial to deploy a virtual machine? How can we achieve it? Yes. What you need to do is like first you need to create a virtual machine or something which you are planning in portal.cloud.com. Post that. After creating that, your ARM template will be generated. After your ARM template is generated, you can download it, you can modify it, and you can deploy your virtual machine via PowerShell using your ARM template. That we can do it, and it is possible because we definitely use that. Because let's say in one enterprise scenario, we'll be having around 2,000, 3,000 employees. For every employee, I cannot log into portal.azure.com and I cannot select each option. I cannot select next. I cannot do all those things. So at that time, we'll be using these kind of ARM templates, and we'll be just changing the host name, means your computer name, virtual machine name, and your username and your password. That's it. By changing these options, we will use that template for everybody, and you can use the template by all the models, by CLI, PowerShell, portal.azure.com. So you can do it from multiple areas. And one more thing, whatever we are doing on portal.azure.com, majority of the things we can do it from our Cloud Shell and our PowerShell. So those are also for compute things. For every compute thing, for your storage, for your backup, for your virtual machine, for your creations, virtual networks, resource group creations, subscription creations, everything, whatever it is, you can do it from your CLI and your PowerShell. But your, what we say, platforms, but for your software, we have a limited scope over that area. Okay. Can we change storage type of storage account created in future? I'm sorry. Can we change storage type of storage account created in future based on requirements? Yes, basing on the types, because you have different storage type. You have premium storages, you have hardware HDD storages or SDD storages. So you can change your types basing on the things you want. But once you created one, it is not easy to convert from one thing to another thing, because data in one disk, it is one type of disk. It needs to be converted to another disk. So definitely it will charge and it will definitely take much more time to convert it. So while you are taking it, you need to make sure that what you are taking and how it is utilized for you. Okay, tell me about Azure DevOps. Yes, Azure DevOps also, which we have available on this what is called on Azure. So your test planning, your test things, your testing, your development coding, which you are doing while performing your what you call your project at your initial phase, those things are also available in your Azure, and we do have different applications for it. Let me show you. So DevOps starter. You have DevOps. 1 second. See, this is your marketplace, and here you have these all DevOps applications which are available as a part of it. Ansible, CentOS, Application Insights, DevOps Starter. There are multiple DevOps applications. You have your GitLab, you have your Git server for Ubuntu. So it's based on simple answer every time. It is based on the requirement and the area of your expertise. Okay. So any more questions, or can I cover the last topic for today? Okay, is there Salesforce application SAS on Azure? So Salesforce, I believe it is a separate application, because Salesforce servers or your what we say Salesforce type of models which you are running. So I think it is a separate one, but I'm not sure on this one. I'll get back to you on this. So any other things, any other queries on storage, compute, networking? Can people give a thumbs up if everything is clear till now, so that I can proceed ahead? Oh my God. It is like a compartment in a train. So many thumbs ups are coming. Okay. Then I'll go to the next topic for today, and that will be the last topic for today. It is your Azure Advisor. So Azure Advisor, what is your Azure Advisor and why we need to use this? So the basic use of your Azure Advisor is like, it will help you to reduce your costs. So let's say I have 10 applications, 10 web applications I'm running in my Azure account. So every day I'm running only 4 applications, and the other 6 applications I'm not running, and I'm running it it's like in a non-frequent manner. Maybe in every 1 month I just try to connect to those 6 applications, and I'll disconnect from it immediately. So how to reduce my cost in 1 month, this Azure Advisor will help you. See, it has given you one recommendation which is of medium impact. Let's say if I open it and see, so yearly I can save 2,360 rupees. Okay, by how? Delete my public IP address not associated to running Azure resource. Okay, so I have I think I have 2 public IP addresses which I have not associated to Azure resources. So I have blocked my public IP address. I have blocked 2 IP addresses, but I'm not using it. I have not assigned it to any of the application. So then those things are this one. Okay, iiswebserver.com, iisload.mah.com. So I have 2 public IP addresses. So I'm not using it. Let's say I'm not at all using. Last updated on 5 when we just opened it right today. So that one. So I'm not actually using it. So how can I save some money? How can I try to reduce my budget? So Azure will recommend you. It will help you to say that, see, you are not using this public IPs. See, you are not using these VMs. See, you are not using these web apps. So waste of time, waste of money, unnecessary investment. So at that point of time, the Azure Advisor will suggest you can remove those. So let's say I'm not using this. I'll remove those. I'll just select these 2 things and I'll just do a quick fix. So availability impact, no, it is not connected to any of my resources. So I'm just disassociating it. Disassociating means I'm removing it from my resources which I've took from Azure. So cost, there are no recommendations to save my cost because I'm using everything which I booked from Azure. Okay, coming to reliability, what reliability I have? There are 2 recommendations in reliability, and both are medium recommendations. What is this? Enable soft delete to protect your blob data. Enable virtual machine backup to protect your data from corruption and accidental deletion. So backup we have already discussed. I didn't activate my backup because I'll delete my resource. So no point, I don't need my backup. But in any project environment or any IT environment, definitely you need to have backups which are running on a daily basis. So then you need to enable this. You need to take this recommendation on a serious note, and you need to enable your backup. just to make sure your data is safe. The next one will be enable soft delete to protect your blob data. So what is soft delete? Soft delete is like, as I already said, is like whatever data which you have stored in Azure, it will not be deleted if you delete it at go. Let's say I don't want some files. I just go there, select those, and if I delete it, it will not delete. It will wait for some days. It will wait for 14 days. It will wait for 10 days, basing on you select when you enable this soft delete option. So it will be still available in your machine after deleting it also. Let's say if you have enabled this option for 14 days, so before you have deleted a file today is 6th. So if I have enabled the things for 14 days, till 20th of October, my data is safe. So if I want to retrieve it on 16th of October, I can go there, I can go to what we say the storage vault, and I can retrieve my information in a go. You can get the information. But let's say if I want to retrieve my information on 22nd of October, which crosses the 14 days limit, I cannot get it. So that kind of what we say reliability and that kind of security we can have while using Azure. So those things will be posted in your advisor, and you can daily monitor your advisor, and you can make sure how to save your cost, how to enable your security in the sense if your devices are publicly available to internet. So there are chances of multiple networking attacks like DDoS attacks or your network hacking attacks, so multiple chances of attacks. So how to ensure those things? So who will tell you? There is no point someone will come sit in front of you or else will call you and tell you like, see boss, this is not working, this is not as expected, this is not safe, nothing like that. Or else there is no point of breaking your head analyzing everything. So you have an advisor which will be completely monitoring all your subscriptions, which is attached to an account, and giving you feedbacks that you need to do this to ensure this. You need to do this to keep safe your environment. So that is your main and your first primary and the most important fundamental of your advisor. Advisor is available in every account, and it is of what I can say is like it is of much useful one. It's the most useful one which I found in Azure, because if I forget to do something, it will give me a pop-up that this is not working, this is not as expected. So it will help me to reduce my cost, to reduce my security, to increase my performance. So many things are there. So these are some of the things which we can do in advisor, and you can download the recommendations as a PDF or CSV file, because on a fly we cannot see this, and we cannot say to our what we say in our IT company, we cannot say like my Azure advisor is asking me to do this, it is asking me to delete it, it is asking me to do this, do that. So we cannot go it in a fly, right? So we can download those PDF documents and your CSV documents, and we can form a formal meeting, and that for that reasons we'll be using these things. So everything is automated, nothing, there is no point of trying to improvise something. Everything will go as per the expected one. So that is a part of your advisor. So questions time. And also please do provide the feedback as well once we finish with the session, because it would be much helpful for us to ensure how to cover from the next sessions. So guys, you can post your queries right now. We have around 10-15 minutes. We can discuss that and we can disconnect. Yeah. What is the difference between AWS and Azure? Yes, differences, we can say multiple differences we can say in Azure, AWS and Azure. Not AWS and Azure, we have multiple clouds as well. GCP we have, Oracle we have, so many clouds are as well. We have Alibaba cloud as well. So it's like the resources they are providing and the resources the others are providing. It's like it is based on the structure, it is based on the strong things which we use. Let's say in Azure, we say the virtual machines as virtual machines. But in AWS, we call it as EC2 instance. So the naming conventions would be different, the screens would be different, and let's say in Azure you will see multiple colorful screens. So it will be much more easier for us to navigate. But in AWS, it's like it is also easy to navigate, but I feel Azure is easy for me, so I choose it. So you can plan for anything. At the end of the day, AWS or Azure, Everything is cloud computing, but the names, the models, the pattern will change. That's it. Okay, sir, if I create an account and if we not used at all, for how many days I can? I already said account will be valid for 30 days only. So after 30 days, your what we say, what are all the information which is provided given to you as a free of cost at 13,300 credit, it will be automatically revoked. But your account will be active. You can use it after 1 year. You can use it after 6 months also. But you should go in a pay as you go method, not in a free trial. Pay as you go means whatever you are using, you need to pay for it. In that way, you need to go. Okay, only two questions. Any others? Okay, another question came. Which is more cost reliable among all the cloud services available? Okay, cost reliable. Then for cost reliable, then you need to require what we say bidding. You need to go for bidding for all the three cloud services. You need to go as an enterprise model. Let's say because you, me, or individuals, we do it for today, for tomorrow, maybe 3 months, for maybe 1 year, and finally we'll delete it. But as an enterprise, if it is taking, then it should use it for years. It is not like for 3 months or 6 months or 1 year or 2 years. After 2 years, they cannot dissolve it. So it will go for bids, and basing on the what we call tenders and all those things, which they will sit and analyze which one is cheaper and where we are getting much things. So in that way it runs. Is Active Directory work in AWS cloud? Yes, but it will run with some other different naming convention. In Windows, we call it as Azure Active Directory or Windows Active Directory, which multiple people familiar with it. So, but in AWS, it will be called as with some other different naming convention. In GCP also the same, you will be running with some other different naming conventions. So I already said naming conventions are different, but the basic core is common everywhere. Okay, next. If our free trial is finished, then the data we saved in it, how can, no, you cannot get your data back. You cannot get any of your data back if your free trial is completed, but there will be some what we call some grace period as well after your time is completed. Then maybe if you get reacted in that time, you may get it, or else no. Okay, any other next question? Okay, so what kind of questions they ask in exam means about their services or what? Okay, so as I shown you, it's like if you are available in the Telegram group. Yesterday, I'm not sure somebody has shared the what is course content over there. So it will the questions will be coming from that area. Let's say there will be a percentages in your questions. Let's say you get 15 to 20% in one area, you'll get 20 to 30% in your security, you have 10% coming from some area. So it's not a generalized one, it comes in a random fashion. It's not like some questions here, some questions there, we cannot say. But let's say for networking we can say 5 questions. What questions we cannot say. They can concentrate on your network security groups, they can concentrate on your subnets, they can concentrate on your private IP addresses. So multiple things are there in network, right? So in that way. But as a part of what we call this one, we don't expect heavy questions or strong questions to be answered, because we are going through 900. The name, it is automatic, it's clearly mentioned that it is Azure fundamentals. So we'll be discussing the things as a part of fundamental level. It's like you will be trained, or you if you write 900 and if you are passed in 900, it means like you do have knowledge and you can start working on Azure one, but not as a full-time consultant, but you have knowledge on it and you have understood the concepts in that way. Okay, in AWS it is called directories. Okay, somebody has responded for Active Directory in AWS Cloud. Yes, it just seems directories. Okay, thank you. I don't know it. I'm not sure on AWS. Okay, is it possible to export VM to our on-site infrastructure? So I believe we cannot take any information from cloud. It is, you should map your external devices via NFS shares, and you can post your information over there. I believe you know what is NFS share, right? Network file share things. So you need to copy your files to a network file share, and from there you can retrieve it. Okay. Can you provide records? I think it is live on YouTube. You can do check it over there. Some people are saying yes, but I'm not sure why you are saying yes. Are you saying yes for feedback? I think last 7 minutes. Okay, can I use Cert Bolt exam test for practicing test? Cert Bolt, do you have AZ900 over there? Are they providing AZ900 in Cert Bolt? If they are, you can go ahead. Yes, then you can go ahead. You can just use as a practice test over there. How many questions are there in the test? Okay, so it is typical. I cannot say this and this, but it is based on the candidate. It's not like by seeing, it's not like, see, I'll tell you my experience. So when I wrote my AZ900 test, I got around 35 questions. But when I wrote my AZ103 and 104 test, I got 40 questions. But when I wrote my other Azure test, I got only 30 questions. So we cannot assure on questions, but we can give a random count, like it will be between 35 to 40 or 45, somewhere like that. But I cannot say like definitely you will get 40 means you will not get 40. You may get 38, 37. So it is not fixed. Okay. Anything else? Come on, guys. So many people are there. Around 150 people are there. No queries for today? I think everybody is clear in today's discussion. Tell me what are topics in Azure ADM. Yes, Azure ADM is what you are focusing. Are you pointing to AZ900? Are you pointing to 103? Are you pointing to 303, 304? You need to target the number with certification and then we can share it. Okay, what do you suggested after AZ900? Yes, after 900 you can plan for 103, 104. 103, 104 will give you much more expertise, but 103, 104 is like, it's on your interest. Let's say you are interested in coding, then you can go for 203, 204, not for 103, 104. If you are interested in infrastructure and architecture, you come for 103 and 104. Let's say if you are going for what we call AI fundamentals, you have AI 900 exam also. So AI fundamentals have a separate exam, IoT has a separate exam, so it's different. What are opportunities after Azure trainings? Yes, you have multiple openings in Azure. It's like now the platform and the market has become very good for Azure. Not for Azure, it's for cloud. So for cloud, the market is really good. So you need to take the respective one, or else you need to plan the correct one. If you take Azure, it is fine. If you take other things also, it is fine. But whatever you are taking, if you are in cloud computing, definitely you'll get much more chances when compared to us. Okay. Then somebody said like administrator. Okay, administrator, then you will be going for 103, 104. Sorry, 103 is not there. Now 104. After 104, you will go for AZ 303, 304, 300. Okay, sir, can we have a tool in Azure that can be used in ECE department projects? So yes, it's like which tool you are expecting. Tools like we have this tool is there, right? I forgot the name. For we have a lab as well. I too did it in third year. We have a lab for it. Some AutoCAD, not AutoCAD, Xilinx. Yeah, Xilinx one, and another one is there is a tool for ECE. So you have those tools in Azure. So if you want only the tools, you can use as a software as a service, and you can run it over there. Okay, is it like IAS and PS? Yes. I am not sure on your question, Chinni Gopishwara. You can please repeat it again. Any readouts or handouts for labs? Readouts and handouts for labs, it's like you can get all the training content from docs.microsoft.com. I will show you. It's like we are not providing you this what is called preparation material because everything is available from the owner itself, from the vendor Microsoft itself. Everything is available. There's no point of preparing something at the back end and sharing with people. So I will show you how to open it, how to read it, how to understand it, how to practice it, how we get the sandboxes. We'll be showing it on Friday's lecture. So please do stick to us. Okay, for deploying Red Hat Linux image in virtual machine using SSH, how can I access? Is it same procedure likewise RDP? No. For Linux, we don't use RDP. For Linux, we use SSH protocol. And SSH protocol, with it will run with keys. We have keys enabled. We don't use username and password to connect to any Linux machine in cloud. We can do, but the recommended method is like we use to keys. We have keys which are generated, so the putty file will be automatically downloaded to your machine. There is no point of giving username and password. It will be automatically connected. It has a string in it and it will connect to your respective virtual machine. Okay, what is meant by cloud architecture then? Is it a part of cloud or what? Of course, cloud architecture means administrators. All the administrators are a part of cloud architecture. They will be sitting and dividing how to configure networks, how to configure virtual machines, how to configure connections, from which virtual machine to which virtual machine we need to create an route way, and how to enable the traffic. So all these things. Next one, for certificates, we definitely need to attempt the exam now. Sir, completing the course will not provide. No certificate. We will show you how to write, how to take the certification in the 3 free ways which are currently available. You need to just monitor those websites every month or every twice, thrice in a week and book your slot. So what happens is like when you book your slot also, what happens is like there will be a refresher training. They'll be having a refresher training. You'll be having around 4 hours or 3 hours refresher training on the same thing which we've discussed, AZ900. So it will help you to refresh your knowledge. Post sitting for the refresher training for 2-3 hours, it'll take only 1 day only for 2-3 hours. You need to sit in that refresher training and everything is virtual. And after that, they will communicate the coupon code to your email address and you can redeem it on Microsoft website. Okay, I think we are done for the day. It's top of the clock, 6 p.m. So, okay, guys, then thanks for connecting. Please do share your valuable feedback. It will be helpful for me to plan tomorrow's lecture. Please take it as a much important one. Please do share your feedback. It is most important for us. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for all your likes and claps. Thank you. Have a good day. I think, Prudvigaru, I think we can come out.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. Thanks for the session.
Yeah, most welcome.